the Super Bowl. This the big one, man. This the big one. This is the one I've been looking forward to all year. This is currently my biggest holding in my portfolio. So, this is one that will have big implications for my portfolio up or down tomorrow. And, we'll just see. We'll just see. We're going to go over, some things that I'm going to be looking forward to hearing in tomorrow's earnings reports, some things that you should be looking out for. And we're going to look at, you know, some of the track record, for their earnings in regards to EPS, revenue. And then, I'll kind of give you my prediction on how I see things going. So today, they closed at 126.63, as you can see here. This is a company that has a very big market cap. I think they come only second to Apple. They have a market cap of 3.1 trillion. So this is a massive company. They account for, a big chunk of the S&P 500. Last year in 2024, they accounted for, their contribution to the S&P 500 was about 20.3%, and granted that shrunk a little bit, currently 2025, they have, their contribution to the S&P 500 is only about 5.2%, but, they still hold a big chunk. They still have a lot of market cap. This is a company that still is in the driver's seat when it comes to, the AI space, semiconductors, they're the center of it all. So when you look here, as you can see, this is kind of a chart for estimates in regards to revenue and, EPS. So as you can see here, this goes back to let me pull up this chart. This makes it a little easier to see. All right, so I'll pull this up. This is EPS up here, and this is revenue. We'll just look at revenue. So if you look at the revenue, this goes back, which we can take it back all the way back to Q2 2022. But, if we just pay attention to the last three quarters, as you can see, they have beat expectations every time. Same thing with EPS up here. They've beat expectations every time. Now, when you're talking about a company like Nvidia, the market has gotten accustomed to them beating earnings. And then when we're talking about earnings tomorrow, I fully expect them to beat earnings. I expect them to get a beat on revenue. I expect them to get a beat on earnings per share. What are the estimates? Earnings per share estimates for tomorrow's earnings is 84 cents on the EPS and a revenue about 37.72 billion. I expect them to get a beat on both of those. That's fully expected. That would be normal. That's something they've continued to do. They've continued to beat earnings quarter after quarter after quarter. Now, is that going to be enough to push the needle? I don't believe so. I don't believe so. And that's why we'll be listening and looking for key things in those earnings tomorrow. So, what will I be looking for and wanting to hear in those earnings tomorrow? Number one, I'll be looking to hear about supply and demand. Are they producing enough Blackwell among other chips? Are they meeting demand? Because in order to hit the revenues that we expect them to hit, in order to drive adoption, they need to be able to meet demand. They need to be able to meet demand. So I want to hear about that. Are they able to meet demand? Are they able to produce and provide their customers with the orders? We don't want to have any supply chain constrictions. We don't want to have any setbacks, any delays, so I want to hear about that. Secondly, China and export controls. As we know, Biden administration, they have put export controls restrictions on the type of chips Nvidia could, provide to China, and on his way out, he tried to further, tighten those restrictions. And we've heard, Donald Trump, speak about potentially, continuing down that path. We'll have to see. But we want to know, get any commentary on how, Jensen Wong, kind of has that been affecting you guys? How are you navigating that? And, if these things are to go into effect, how do you foresee it affecting, you know, the business? How do you see it? How do you foresee it affecting, the revenues, the earnings per share, your projections, guidance? We want to hear those type of things. Also, tariffs on chips. We've heard Donald Trump talk about potentially putting a 25% tariff on semiconductor chips. Granted, we don't know. We don't know. That plays kind of into the role of a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. We have a lot of back and forth in regards to tariffs and trade war and all that stuff. So we'll just have to see. They can't really control that too much, but it would be nice to hear, any insider, any commentary on how they plan to navigate those waters, or if he's had any conversations with Trump, anything in regards to that. Another thing I want to hear about for guidance in regards to Blackwell adoption. How has that transition went? Has your customers, are they adopting Blackwell, and are they transitioning successfully over to Blackwell in regards to it driving the data center business? We want to hear about Blackwell. And finally, I want to hear some commentary about DeepSeek. We had the DeepSeek situation happen. Allegedly they used Nvidia chips to develop and train that open source large language model. So, any commentary around that situation and kind of putting investors' minds at ease would be great to hear. And I think it could be good for, giving us some forward traction, and giving investors peace of mind, because there's some uncertainty, some questions around, you know, will we need as much compute power as we thought? Should we be spending this much money on CapEx infrastructure? Will we need as many semiconductors, these GPUs? Will we need all of this thing? Will we need all of this stuff? Because allegedly, China did what they did with a lot less compute power for a lot less money. Granted, that was debunked. We looked into the technical data and other reports came out. It did cost them more money, but they did do it with a little less. And allegedly, not even the most complex chips. So we want to hear about that. I want to hear about that. I'm sure a lot of other people want to hear about that. So those are some things I'm going to be looking forward to hearing in regards to the call after the earnings. I expect them to beat on their estimates. I expect them to beat. I don't really see them having any issues there. But the call is where we want to get. The call is where we're going to get the information that we need, the catalyst that we need to start pushing the stock forward, which will, you know, push the entire space forward, I believe. So this is going to be a very critical earnings report. This is going to be a very important call, that could make or break, the semiconductor chip stocks, in the short to midterm. And, if things go well, it could propel some things forward for them. So we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. We'll look here. As you can see, year to date, Nvidia is down about 5.7%, along with some of the other big players, Broadcom, AMD. They had that big hit when DeepSeek came out. Some of them, have rebounded. But Nvidia's down, man, year to date. You know, on the month, Nvidia is down 11.2%, on the month. Broadcom down 7. So it's not looking good for semiconductors, man. It's not looking good for semiconductors. That DeepSeek, you know, situation, that whole ordeal really hit the space hard. And then, all of this uncertainty with tariffs and, restrictions on chips and, CapEx spend and all of this. There's a lot of macro news out, a lot of negative macro news, surrounding the AI space. So we'll just have to see. This is a very important earnings. This is one that a lot of people in the space are looking forward to, but we'll just have to see. My prediction is that they will beat earnings, they will beat estimates, and I don't know how the call is going to go. I don't know how the call is going to go. I'm hoping for the best. I'm optimistic. Like I said, this is probably right. I think right now the biggest holding, my biggest holding right now in my portfolio. So but regardless of what happens tomorrow, I'm invested for the long term. This is a company that I believe in, over the long term, 5, 10, 15 years. And I'm gonna be holding, regardless of what happens tomorrow. But I would like for us to get a great earnings, a great call, great guidance, to start pushing us forward, up into that 150, 160, 170 plus range. I think if we get a good earnings, we could really see a lot of traction. And as you've been seeing, man, if you get a good enough earnings, good enough guidance, as you can see, even with a stock like Palantir, granted it's coming down, but if you get those good earnings, this earnings is coming, after the bell, you could see a lot of movement really fast after hours tomorrow. So we'll just have to see, man. Nvidia is one that, I'm definitely going to be invested in for the long term. I don't have any worries or any reservations when it comes to Nvidia for the long term. And it's one that, I'm all in on. I'm all in on. So we'll just wait to see what happens tomorrow. Let me know in the comments, man. Are you invested in Nvidia? How many shares you hold? Do you think we're gonna have a good day tomorrow? Do you think they're gonna beat, on their estimates? What do you expect to hear from guidance? And also, we have the Project Stargate, so maybe they can speak on that. We just have to see. There's a lot of things, to touch on, but we just have to check out the earnings tomorrow and the call. For those of you that are new, download the Qatar app. I've talked about that before. Go follow them on the Qatar app, follow those earnings, listen to the call. And yeah, I'll see y'all when I see y'all, man. Tap into those earnings tomorrow. And I'm sure, if you're following the space, it's all you're gonna hear about tomorrow. A lot of news circulating around Nvidia, and definitely after the bell. So see y'all tomorrow. Have a good night. And let's hope for the best, man. Let's hope for the best. I got a lot of money in Nvidia, man. I'll see y'all tomorrow, man.